Hello there, kia ora. Yesterday, TV viewers woke up to an interview with Children's Minister Chhour defending the decisions to put children at risk by slashing budgets and removing proven effective policies and legislation to save money and pay for tax cuts. In that interview, she claimed that service providers for children and young people were cash cows, hoarding money, so they needed to streamline the whole organisation, claiming that services won't be impacted but streamlined and made more efficient. When asked for evidence, she pulled out that old right wing politician trick of deflecting with anecdotal, impossible to prove stories, and I think it was, but I'm not sure, comments. But the truth of the situation is actually really different, surprisingly. The claims of cash being hoarded is actually an operational contingency. Firstly, these organisations often receive funding from multiple sources, not just the government department. And when it comes to funding types, well, there's actually multiple tiers depending on the government organisation and the service provided, and they're all different. Tier 1 is a support service purchased by the ministry. Tier 2 is a service provided for a specific requirement funded by the ministry. Tier 1 services are usually built with resilience reserves to ensure that they can afford to do the job in the time frame specified. So if it's a 12-month contract, in theory, they should have a year's worth of operational reserves. And those reserves are the thing that could have multiple funding sources. Chhour implied that those reserves are all government funded, but that's not usually the case. And every contract with a government department requires an accountability report to show how money was spent. And money that isn't spent is returned. It's not like that time that your mum sent you down to get milk from the dairy and told you could keep the change. It's written into the contracts and agreements that unspent money gets returned. So the cash reserves she claims are sitting there have very specific reasons for doing so. And for community service providers, more funding clearly helps them help more people, which is why some of those reserves are made up of funds from other sources, not just the government. But she also claimed that no money was being taken away from Oranga Tamariki. Services and organisations were being told that they're going to focus on core services from now on. The funds are just being redistributed where it's needed the most. So those budget cuts demanded by the government to pay for its tax cuts, which saw a reduction of 447 roles, including 21 specialist Māori roles, International Child Protection Team, the Leadership Team, Residences and Community Homes Team, Tamaki and Whānau Services, the Legal Division and Criminal Records Teams, and the Disestablishment of the Safety of Children and Care Team was meant to save nearly $60 million, with a budget reduction in this year's budget of $30 million on top. And somehow, they're all still meant to keep funding the level of services currently on offer. Oranga Tamariki have paid for 1,470 services from 451 service providers this year, after reducing the list of service providers by 190 who provided 337 services and reducing funding to another 142 providers. They say that this has saved them $22 million through recouped underutilization costs, which the sector is calling bullshit on, an oversimplification of the enormous complexities of the challenges that they face. Take, for example, the North Shore Women's Centre. Each year, they help between 450 and 500 women with low-cost counselling, social work, and legal advice, as well as help finding services in times of crisis, especially for women who are impacted by family violence, which also clearly impacts children in the household, which is why they get funding from Oranga Tamariki. Until last week. This funding being stopped means a service helping people for 37 years will have to close. The North Coast MP, National's Dan Bidwar, responded by saying, "Yep, it's true. I've asked for more details and we'll look at options when they tell me why, and not, holy shit, let me move heaven and earth to help this clearly valuable local organisation who helps people who really need it." The impact this government is having on our communities is only just starting. We're less than a year into a term being driven by willful ignorance towards the harm their decisions are making towards vulnerable communities all over the motu. But hey, they saved a small percentage of money they're putting aside for the tobacco industry and tax cuts. So I guess it was totally worth it.